Welcome to episode 4 of the RawAutos podcast. Once again, you're back. You're here, where all the action lives. Of course, I'm Josh Lewis, the founder, editor, and everything else at RawAutos.com, and the host of the RawAutos podcast. My podcast. Me. You're listening to me. And I didn't have to pay anything. I know, shocks me too. So for my guest on episode 4 of the RawAutos podcast is somebody that I am extremely familiar with, and none of you will be familiar with at all. And that's okay, because he is one of my best friends. He's somebody that I've grown up with. We've been friends since we were 14, about that time. I went to high school together, didn't go to college together, but we stayed friends all these years. We hang out maybe 1 to 3 times a year, because he lives 3 hours away from me. But he is a massive car guy. And he's a mechanic, handyman. He's one of those people that in general, you want to have him around because he's so curious about life and doing anything he can for fun. The reason why Rob and I actually really met was because we were in music class together. We both played guitar. Rob, far more talented than I am and was, but we found a similar bond. He was a big Jimi Hendrix guy. I was a big Eric Clapton guy. And so we've always shared that. We've always shared the music and the love of movies and television and just cars and everything in between. He's genuinely one of the most talented individuals I'll ever know in my entire life. He's one of those people that you actually really should hate because he can listen to any song just for a couple minutes and sit down at a guitar, sit down at a piano, and he's got it. It's instantaneous. He has it. Super annoying, but quite amazing in the end. I remember he told me years ago when we were in high school that I asked him how he got started to play guitar. He started when he was about 8 years old. And he said that he used to put on B.B. King tapes and pause them and try and play the lick or try and play the melody or whatever that B.B. was playing. And it's pretty incredible that by the time we got into high school, I mean, he'd been playing guitar for, 6 years, and he was incredible to listen to. He's somebody that can sit down with pretty much any instrument, just kind of pick it up pretty quickly, pretty easily. He has a great ear. And so his music is fantastic. His style is even better. But as a friend, as a car guy, as somebody that I can count on, we were in each other's weddings. We talk literally every day. And the first 10 minutes of any conversation we have on the phone is us just goofing around. I mean, genuine. I'm not saying that as like, the first 10 minutes and it's really only like 2 minutes. No, it is genuinely the first 10 minutes of every conversation where we're like, stop playing on my phone. Man, you sick son of a, and then we just do voices. We do characters. We do stupid things for 10 minutes before we ever get into what's going on. And we could be having the worst day. We could be having something terrible is happening, but the first 10 minutes is us just goofing off. That's our relationship. But in this global pandemic, I wanted to talk to Rob because as someone who experiences cars through a much different lens than I do, as a mechanic, as a classic car mechanic, mainly, somebody who rebuilds and restores and resto mods classics for other people and with other people, I wanted to really sit down and dive into how this was affecting him. Because even though mechanics are considered, essential, it doesn't mean that the people who are spending money to rebuild a car feel as though spending money to rebuild a car is essential to what they need in their life. But we also dive into the fact that Rob just sold his 1950 Cadillac Series 62 that he had rebuilt to be a pretty drivable car. And he currently has a 1956 Cadillac Coupe De Ville. That's gorgeous. That he's making more gorgeous and making more drivable every day. So yeah, it's nice to have somebody on the podcast that isn't a journalist, doesn't make their money off of reviewing cars, but instead makes their money off of rebuilding cars, bringing cars back to life, or breathing life into them, so to speak. And I hope you enjoy what we talk about. Get into a little bit of everything. And yeah. So without further ado, I welcome Mr. Rob Basile. How you doing?
Doing good. So yeah, I mean, obviously the payment on the construction side of things has been affected, and so we're waiting for that to come through. But luckily, the automotive side of things is still considered an essential business, which is slightly loose when it comes to restoration. But lucky for us, we're able to continue on working and making income working on cars, which is awesome. And we're currently working on a GTO. It's a 68 GTO convertible. It's got a 400, and we put on a TriPower intake.
Oh, nice.
Off of I think it was a 66. And everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, as it usually, usually goes that way.
Does, yeah. Is it a 68? Is the engine a 68 400? Is it a 69 400? Is it a 70 400?
It's a 68 400 to my knowledge. Hank, my father-in-law, he has what does he have? A 66 Le Mans Pontiac with a 326, and so from what I'm learning, they're part of the same engine family, so the intakes,
a lot of interchangeable stuff. Yeah,
interchangeable, exactly.
Yeah. It's a baby GTO is what it is.
Yeah. So we've put this car together. The current situation, this guy gave us this intake. It was a TriPower intake, and he wanted it installed. He had it sitting on a shelf for 10 years. I don't know where he got it from. It looked all pretty and everything, so we got it on there, and we've had that thing off and on several times, chasing all kinds of random issues. But as luck would have it, the intake manifold itself was slightly warped, just a tiny little bit.
Is that, and that was so? That's when you took it apart. You were texting me and Chris and Ned and Jake asking if we knew.
Maybe it could be.
Because that was how weird is it that of all things, slightly bent is the one
slightly
thing,
warped,
slightly warped. Sorry, slightly warped. That's the one thing that made it not work at all.
Yeah. No, we were pulling our hair out, and the thing with the TriPower, you have 3 different carburetors, and they've all got to be happy.
Right.
The float levels have to be right.
Yep.
The fuel pressure coming in has to be right. What we learned on that one, reading around, they like around 3 pounds, I think, maybe 3.5 pounds. So we had to put a fuel pressure regulator on there, because sometimes these aftermarket, there's still a mechanical pump on there, but they can have varying degrees of pressure that they're pumping out. They can be pumping out 6, 7, 8, which is, we were having, the front carburetor was leaking. It was just overflowing. And so, among changing the float level and checking the needle and all that kind of stuff, I also was concerned with the pressure coming in. And so we put on a fuel pressure regulator, got that under control, but, got it running, but it just wasn't running right. It wouldn't idle right. So, I'm spraying carb cleaner around it to see if the idle raises up and see if we have a vacuum leak. And I'm spraying all around, and it turned out it was on the intake up front there, on the driver's side.
That's crazy.
So
just such a small, you would think such a small, minute issue.
Well, it was interesting because so we had that, and so we figured, okay, well, we'll snug down the intake a little bit,
Hmm.
um, and see what we get. And it didn't fix it, and so then we took it off, and we figured, well, this is a rare intake, and um, we need to see if we can make it. I mean, I'm talking like, I don't even know what it would be, a 32nd of an inch, something very minor. So we tried putting a little RTV in that section there on the gasket as kind of a Hail Mary to see if it would seal up. And it did not. But luckily, we found out that they repop those intakes. They make them aluminum now. And I think it was $400. So we did that, painted it up, swapped it over, all that good stuff. Got it running, took it out. It's fast. It's pretty fast. The idle was still messed up though. And so we, again, taking apart the center carb, mess with that. It was a little bit dirty. It had been sitting around a long time. So we cleaned it up, but it still wasn't quite working. And the most recent fun that we've had with it is that somebody had glued in the fuel inlet. There's where the fuel line screws into that center carb.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody glued that in, and they glued it in. They glued it in because they stripped the hell out of the threads
Oh my God.
on the top of the carb.
Of course, yeah.
And so, I'm talking to Hank, my father-in-law, who was a mechanic for a long time, and he said they make these inlets that kind of tap in new threads, and it was an issue that was not terribly uncommon back in the day. And so we went to the Napa hub in town, and they didn't have anything, and it's one of those things you chase it all around because that carburetor, it's not easy to get parts for.
Right.
It's a Rochester 2-barrel, but that center carb is slightly different than the outer two. And if you check out a company called Ames, they are a supplier for a lot of Pontiac GTO stuff. All we found were the outer two carb tops, that have the threaded section,
Mm-hmm.
not the center carb. So again, that's just kind of what's currently going on with that car in particular. All the things that seem easy, screwing a bolt into a hole, that kind of stuff seems easy, and it's sometimes can take days.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be some really silly stuff. I mean, we had the same thing happen on one of the head bolts. Somebody had over torqued it and stripped the threads. And luckily I was able to take an old tap I had that was just the right size, and it was an old American tap, a guy had given me that was never used. It was just super nice, and cleaned out the threads, and we were able to, fix that. But that's just kind of, that's the kind of typical stuff that you run into.
And those things, when they happen, how much do you just want to go and grab somebody and kick the hell out of them? Just how much?
Well,
I mean, how it just, ugh.
You have to do that kind of work. You have to be a glutton for punishment.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's really true. And coming from learning on 50s Cadillacs, I had plenty of that, butt kicking.
Oh yeah.
Because stuff would fail, and it's made out of unobtainium,
right,
as we say. And
well, especially with the Cadillacs. I mean, how many times would you send me something and be like, this part on the equivalent Chevrolet or Buick is I can find it anywhere, but it's just slightly different for the Cadillac, and I can't get it anywhere.
Yeah, it'll be that, or it'll cost 4 times as much,
which is crazy. Well, I remember when with the 50 alone, when you were having parts like redone. And with the 56 as well, having parts just redone was an arm and a leg. But if somebody strolled in there with a BelAir, they'd be like, "Oh, I can make this part for $10." And it's
yeah.
That's why that is one of the reasons why I know we go over this all the time, but that's one of the reasons why I don't care about the BelAir. I know everybody
Right.
loves them because it's 57 Chevy. You know, I mean, hell, even Eric
Right.
Clapton has had 57 Chevy in like 4 different songs of his. You know,
Right.
everybody talks about a 57 Chevy, and it's a nice thing to say, but they're boring to me. BelAirs are boring. They had big engines, they were fast at the time, but you know what? It's people want $35,000 for an $8,000 BelAir. Excuse me,
Right.
but no, not interested in a car that they made 400 billion of. That I'm sure aliens have beamed those things up to other planets at this point. You know, because it's like there were so many sitting around anyway.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is interesting how it unfolded. I think probably what happened is that a Chevy back in the day was realistically attainable for, you know, the working class person.
90% of America.
Yeah, and so they, you know, their parents had it, their grandparents had it. They made memories with those cars. And so that's what pulls at the heartstrings when it's time to spend money and buy a classic car.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what happened, and that's why there's, you know, a lot of them out there, and the parts are reasonable and usually plentiful.
But your Cadillacs, you know, people were willing to give $1,500 for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The Cadillac is it's a different thing. I mean, and most people love them, but they, you know, they also understand that it's the parts cost a lot more. They're a little, you know, more rare, and it can be frustrating. I mean, my 56 Caddy, I've owned 4 years now, and I've never driven it down the road. Like I drove around the neighborhood once just recently, but you know, every system, every item has been a situation on that car.
Right.
You know, I mean, you name it, there's a story about that part on that car.
Tell me the story, or tell everybody the story, however many, you know, dozens of nobodies that'll listen to this. Tell everybody the story about the first time you got it started in 4 years, drove it down the road. Or no, it was like you had it for 3 years at this point, or whatever. You drove it down the road. It gets beached in front of this lady's house at the stop sign, right? And she comes out. Okay, so you take it from there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I finally got the car fired up.
Back it down your steep ass driveway.
Right. I mean, and you know, went through hell just to get it that far.
Right.
You know, because first of all, on that car in particular, the master cylinder, I don't know if it's a 1 year only item, but it's specific, and they were known to fail back in the day. My car, it was missing entirely, and to buy it outright was like $800 at the time.
God.
And you know, on top of that, in that era, those master cylinders were in a single system, a single chamber.
Yeah.
So if you had one failure in any of the lines, you lose all brakes. You know, cars today have they'll call it a dual master, and they separate the axles. You know, you have one chamber that supplies the fluid for the front and one that supplies it for the rear. So in the event that you have a failure, you still have some brakes. So anyways, this was an early, as far as technologies, you know, it was one of the earlier power brake units, and mine was missing entirely. So I elected to rig up a dual master cylinder, which was cheaper and safer and all that kind of stuff.
I was gonna say it's a smarter play.
Yeah, I mean, but what's unique about this car, well, among other things, but the brakes, the master mounts up front towards the radiator core support there. It's not on the firewall like most cars. So you have, you know, a rod that runs from the pedal and compresses it up front there. So I got that all rigged up, you know, bought a battery that's the right size. It's 12 volt, 56. Caddy went to 12, I think, in 53.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that was just because they were having more options like power seats and things like that. So,
right. Well, you have power windows in your car. Do you have
power windows and power seats and all that good stuff?
And you have, is it is it the auto high beam thing? Is that what it is?
Yes, which is super cool, which doesn't work, but I love that it existed.
That's what I was telling Kristen about the other day. I was like, a 1956 Cadillac. Because I said, if I recall, I think it was like 53 or something that the first ever hardtop convertible came out. I think Ford did it. And
Yeah.
and I was saying that your 56 had auto high beams. I was like, I think that's what it has. I was like, I'm pretty positive that's what it is. And I was like, God, of course now I'm blanking on what it's called and what it actually is. I was like, but I'm pretty positive it's auto high beams. And we were
Yes,
just how astonished.
I think
at
it's
that.
called the Autotronic Eye or something
Something
like
like that. Yeah.
It looks like a little spaceship on your dash.
It does. It looks like it's
And
about to beam you up.
yeah, and it's got a little eyeball in
Yeah.
it. And what's super cool, the brains of it are on the wheel housing in the engine bay, and it's completely tube powered. You know,
That's so cool. I mean, how
yeah,
innovative and creative and
yeah,
we
no,
were.
super neat.
I was
Super neat.
talking.
I took it apart. I took it apart, and it looked brand new inside. I mean, the
Wow,
paint, the decals, everything brand freaking new.
that's awesome. I was saying to
So what it
Kristen,
does,
after
though,
World War II, there was no better time than post World War II anything in America.
well, I was talking about that with Hank the other day. There's a lot of people that wanted pre-war cars.
Pre-war cars are
Um,
great. They're very
yeah,
sweet. But
yeah,
after World War II, we figured out how to do curved glass, the portholes on, especially on the Buicks, the big fins.
yes.
I feel like,
Well, what was beautiful about that time was that it was, at least in my opinion, when it comes to the design language, it was dreamy.
it was
You know,
futuristic. It was
it was
fantasy. It
futuristic.
was, yeah,
Space was on the horizon, and that
right.
was, that was kind of influencing the design.
So cool.
Jets and all that kind of stuff. It just wonderful. Um, so that Autotronic Eye, though, yeah, that's supposed to automatically dim your high beams when
It's so
car
cool.
is coming on. Which is so funny because you see that they'll talk about it on modern cars. Like, oh, it's got that feature.
Yeah, and it's like a
Like,
big deal when I review a car and I'm
right,
like, oh, it has auto
yeah,
high beams, and people are like, ooh.
right, right. And it's just, it's kind of fun like that. Anyways, back to the whole story. Yeah, with the first drive of that car, though. So, you're going through all these different systems. You get it halfway running. I got it down the driveway and halfway down the street, and it completely puked its guts. I mean, transmission fluid was leaking. It was just pouring out. It was just everywhere. I rolled it back slightly, and then, the battery was completely dead. And this lady, I mean, I wasn't parked for 10 seconds, and this lady came out and said, are you going to leave that there? I have an appointment I have to get to. I said, no, I'm moving it. We'll get it out. So, I ran home and put the battery on a quick charge and able to limp it back into the garage, thank God. And 5 minutes later, that lady was outside walking her dog. She just had nowhere to go.
That's my favorite part. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
favorite part, because you said like you were rushing, you were really working hard, you were sweating, you were,
right,
that's, you start to get swamp ass at that point. Like you're just like, I've
right.
got this poor lady has to go to a doctor
Yeah,
appointment. She could die at any moment. I don't know what she's got wrong with her. And then you rush, you get this car back. I mean, this car is like,
yeah,
and then you get it back home after what, 15 minutes,
right.
and then you get back home and the woman's like, la da 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 da,
Yeah,
like she didn't have to go to a doctor appointment for 7 days. And you
right.
were like, you suck.
Oh, yeah. Now, there's a lot of people out there, they don't share the love for the old cars. This is an old hunk of junk to some people,
But
you know.
I mean, why not just appreciate that? I mean, because the woman, if I recall, she was what, in her 50s, 60s?
Yes.
And you're 33, 30. At this time, you were what, 31,
Yeah.
32 when this happened?
Something like that. Yeah.
And so why not? Why isn't she looking, going, you know what? I feel really sorry for that guy. He's trying to keep hope alive with the old generation. You
Yeah.
know what? I bet she wouldn't be so angry if you were trying to date her, because you were a young pup trying to date an older woman, but she's angry that you park your old ass busted ride in front of her
Bring that
house.
old pile of crap. Yeah.
That old pile of crap out of here. You know what? Why don't I call you an old pile of crap? Okay, there, lady.
Yeah.
Listen here, Buster.
Yeah. Lady.
Yeah. This went sexist.
Well,
real
I mean,
quick.
yeah, the lady has since left the neighborhood. She's moved, so
You know why?
the crisis was averted.
Because she had no respect and nobody had any respect for her.
That's it.
That's
So
what it
take
is.
that to heart, folks. People that are listening to that, so
take
let
that
that be a
to the
lesson to
bank.
all of you. Yeah. If you see a broken down Cadillac, leave the guy alone. You know? That was some slack.
Stick that in your pipe
It's
and
like,
smoke it.
it's like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to be broken down right there.
Bonga blintz.
Yeah. So
Oh
anyway.
man, that's one of my favorite stories because I just love that the woman's like, "Are you going to be long?" I got a doctor.
No, I mean, I was talking about this the other day back when I lived in a townhome, and
yeah.
I had the 50 Cadillac, and I was getting it ready for the wedding, and you know I had it up on jack stands, and I was just doing brakes. It was no long-term deal, and you know we didn't have garages; it was a parking lot,
Right.
and this lady rings my doorbell, and she's the head of the HOA there. She said, "Oh, you know, is that your car over there?" And I said, "Yeah," you know, and it had a tag and insurance. It was legal. And she said, "Oh, you know, it's a nice car." And I said, "Oh, thanks. You know, I'm just about to get married. I'm getting it ready right now for the wedding." And she said, "Well, just so you know, you can't work on it here, sir. It's not a junkyard. You understand?"
It's not a
And
junkyard.
I was like,
it's
"You
not
bitch,"
a
you know.
junkyard. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yep. You know,
It's
I mean,
just-
but that was just that was a strike to the heart there.
And
But
what's even more what I find very interesting, because I love sharing this story, or these two stories really. Your bachelor party, we went out drinking. We went out to have a good time. And what did we do? We went home, we got the Cadillac and drove around town for
Went
like
downtown.
2 hours driving the Cadillac instead. We were having a better time in the Cadillac.
yeah, I think we had 6 of us in that car.
Yeah, that's how nerdy we are about cars. We were like, you know what?
That's what I you know, was one of the funniest things being back to the wedding. You guys were following us. We were taking it to the drive-in movie there.
No, Reba and I were in the back seat of the car with you. Remember?
Yeah, but somebody else was following us.
It was
And
Ned and
I see the lights flashing, and they're you know, we hear this loud noise, and
This
all of a sudden
pop.
lights flashing, and yeah, the damn exhaust pipe had just fallen clean off the car. I mean, it literally rotted off.
I
know.
I heard it and I immediately like jumped and looked out the back window, which is like 4 feet higher than I am sitting down. So I'm like looking out, and you just see this metal pipe just spinning, just on, like it looked like it was on fire, but it wasn't. It was just the sparks.
And we just left it.
We pulled into that
We just kept
neighborhood or
going.
that street, and we were like. We looked around, and you're like, "Well, it's running fine," you know. So we just kept on
Well, I
going.
mean, it already had such a terrible exhaust leak. That car, I never fixed that. It was just because I liked the way it sounded.
It actually sounded good, and you know what? That believe it or not, riding in that 50, that was the moment where Reba said to me, "You know, we got married 2 years later after that,
Right.
But she said
that
to me,
sealed the deal.
well, it did. She fell in love with me right then and there.
I knew it.
There was an awkward handy in the back, but
Yeah, that's what that stain was.
she told me that after that ride and going to the drive-in movie, she told me that she really that was the thing that sealed the deal. Where she still says that she wants a big classic car, classic wagon of sorts that we can kind of rebuild and play with.
Right.
Because that 50 was such a cool thing to her. She had never done that before. She'd never ridden in cars like that before.
Right.
So her being in it, she was like, this is very America, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what's so cool about it.
It's a time forgotten.
Well, it's, you know, I was looking last night at some magazine. I don't remember what it was, but it was a shootout with the brand new, you know, top dog Camaro, top dog Mustang, and Challenger. You know, 0 to 60s, quarter miles, and all this kind of stuff. they were all shy of, I don't know, 80 to 95 grand, something like that.
Yeah, you're talking about the GT500, the ZL1 1LE, and the Challenger Hellcat Red Eye
Yes.
wide
And
body.
so, you get sucked into looking at numbers in these
Mm-hmm.
books
Mm-hmm.
or magazines, and you go, oh, it's like bragging rights. Oh,
Yeah.
yours does it. Yours does the quarter in 11.6. Mine does it in 11.4.
Right.
And you look at a watch. We're talking a fraction of a second. Now, I mean, if you're out there really, if you're a big race head, and that's
Yeah, it's
that's
either a real hobby or something you're making money off of. Different story.
yeah. But I mean, if you're doing that thing, then yes, fractions of a second is the whole world. I mean,
Right.
it's night and day. But in terms of ownership experience, and driving, it really doesn't matter when it comes down to your daily driver. You know, uh, you got to enjoy the car. You have to enjoy driving it, and that's the thing. Hank, who I keep talking about. I talk cars with him all the time. They People from his generation, they wax poetic about how fast these cars were back in the day. Um,
They were more
you know,
deadly than fast, really.
yeah, but I mean, it's very different. Today's cars are way more refined. They're
Right.
better at everything. But the experience is different. And, the bragging rights of 0 to 60 and quarter mile times and horsepower, um, it just, once you live with a car, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the whole package. It's a power to weight ratio, but also the smell and the feel
The
and
drivability, the overall. Yeah.
everything it does good, everything it does bad. I
Right.
mean, and just how it makes you
The
feel. It's
characteristics, the personality,
Yes,
yeah.
right. So the old cars have personality big time,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I really enjoy about them, especially the 50s stuff. It's just every time I look at it in person, it's a heartthrob.
Right.
It's a piece of art.
Well, it is truly art. I mean, I'm, we're, of course, you and I are the same, opinion of this, that automotive design is art. It can
Yes.
be absolutely art. You look at cars from, the 20s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, 90s. There are certain cars that just are pure art. 100%.
Oh, I mean, I want to learn more about the era of cars in the 20s. Um, I don't know if Pierce Arrow was out then. They might have
They
been.
were, I think mid to late 20s. I think 25, 23, 25, something like that. And
Yeah.
then
There's
on from there.
an era of car that I don't, off the top of my head, I forget what they would call it, the period of it. But these things are just, you talk about art, I mean, and craftsmanship. These things
Oh,
had brass.
1901 to 1938.
There you
We
go.
were way off.
Yeah. Well, what else is new? But, I mean, they just, the metal that they used on these things, the
Hmm.
brass, the nickel.
Yeah.
Um, Keep in mind that these cars were for the super elite.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Right. Yeah.
average Joe couldn't afford these cars.
Well, keep in mind that some of those cars were actually just, all it was they would, a car company would design a shell, or they would design, sorry, the chassis, the engine, and stuff like that, and the rest of it would be coach built to your
Yes,
specifications.
right,
And
right.
that's why you have so many Rolls Royces and Bentleys and Caddies and Lincolns that were so radically different. There was like three of them.
Right, right.
And that to me is cool. I don't know if you know this or not, but junior year in high school, I actually did our American history class. We had to do a thesis, which you probably don't remember this because you remember nothing about history or about our history in high school and stuff. But I
I don't
remember
remember
everything.
what I had for lunch today.
But we had to do a thesis about something to do with American history, and I did the Roaring Twenties as it related to cars in America.
Yeah,
And that was my junior thesis for American history class, and it was mainly about Waltro and Bentley and car companies like that, the super elite cars that were around during the Roaring Twenties, that were the game changers of sorts.
Right.
Now, W.O. Bentley was not so much necessarily, super, or the Bentley cars weren't so much elite here in the United States. They were more in Europe, but they were seen as extreme because they were race cars,
Right. Right.
and they raced, all over the world. And so
Right.
people saw that as a big deal. And I
Right.
mean, God, to think that those cars in the 20s and 30s would do 80 to 120 miles an hour, some of them
Oh
even
yeah.
faster than that. And I look at these cars and go, who the hell's going 120 in that? The
Right.
tires are like an inch and a half wide. It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's,
Yeah.
I think about, and I romanticize about it. I
Right.
romanticize about the people that had the balls to do it.
Right.
And how much courage or alcohol or cocaine it took to do these things.
Right.
And it's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah. No, it's unfortunate that that era is not as well represented in your average car shows.
Right.
And I don't just mean like, cruise-ins. I mean,
Actual goodie or
yeah, good
the
guys and
yeah, good guys. Thank you.
the auto fair.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
Cars and coffee even.
yes, yeah. I mean, some years are better than others, and sometimes you get lucky. Um, but I've always wanted to attend one of those Pebble Beach type deals, the higher level, and
Well, let's
see
go.
this stuff.
I can get in as a journalist and I can bring you with me.
Yeah, I'll have to go sometime because
I've always
you
wanted to
know,
go. I guess the biggest problem is that I never thought it was really necessary because I wasn't going to be going to necessarily cover it and start taking pictures. I just wanted to go for the experience as a journalist to hang out with other journalists I know. And, and it's like, well,
right?
but I remember we went to the Good Guys show in Raleigh
Yeah,
and we saw that V16 Cadillac. It was basically a resto mod is really what it was. Or
yeah,
not
yeah,
even,
yeah,
not,
yeah.
it
No,
wasn't.
because I think it had a Chevy 350 under the hood.
Yeah, right. And but it was cool to even see the car, just
Yes,
because you and I, we knew what it was immediately, right?
right,
We were
right.
like, oh, is that a V16? Like
Yeah,
we were gawking over it. Of course, the V16 would be worth millions of dollars, to ever put into a car. It's ridiculous.
well, so this, taking it full circle. So there's two things to be said. Um, I was at the Charlotte Auto Fair a few years ago, and there were some guys that had a couple cars there that they were showing that it was a restoration company, and the owner was letting them take the car out to be shown. And I was talking to one of the guys. Just I think it was a '53, give or take. It was a Buick Special.
Hmm.
Four doors. It was a kind of a basic car, but it was nut and bolt, every single thing brand new, all the plating, you name it. It was a showroom car, and I asked him, what the deal was with that. I think it was in the family, and it was somebody that had money, and it was in the family, and they wanted it like new. But that car specifically, I think it was 300 or 350 grand that they had in that
Good
restoration.
Lord.
Yep. And that's what I said. And he said, well, we got another one over there. I forget what it was. It was a 30s Chrysler coupe of some sort, convertible thing. And they had like 500K in it.
Oh my God.
And so the cars are stunning, but you can't,
You
you
can't
can't
drive them.
really, you can't drive them.
No.
You can't go out and enjoy them. And so that's the other side of the coin. That's the beauty of, everybody wants to stick their nose up at if a car has a Chevy 350 under the hood. But the other side of the coin, you want these
You want it to
cars
be
are
seen.
art. You want it to be seen. You want
Yeah.
it. You want to experience it. You want to get it out there, and
Clone it the best you can.
do what you can, and that's it. Enjoy it, and this Cadillac here. The 56, I was really trying to be true to the car, and I restored the original. I have the original engine and trans rebuilt, and I'm using all the original stuff.
Mm-hmm.
except for the brakes. But um, in saying that, it's taken a lot longer to get this car rolling, and um, I think my next car, I want to be quote unquote set free, where there's no rules and you can just kind of build a hot rod. And um, I've seen the other side of the coin, because that old 50, that was all original, but you're not taking that down the highway and doing 75
No,
and
God, no.
on a hot summer day. And you can't really go out and about. And people today, not everybody understands how old a car is, and what it's capable and what it's not capable of. And you know people will ride your butt, and they'll stop early in front of you. And in saying all that kind of stuff, I'm finally warming up to the idea of taking these classics and making them usable,
Mm-hmm.
in the real world, in the current real world, how it is. So yeah, I mean, that can mean a different engine or transmission, brakes, and electric wipers, LED lighting, you
Yeah.
know, um,
Safety stuff.
safety stuff,
Stuff to
you
make the
know.
car more usable, you know.
Yeah, because then you can get it out there, and in some cases it's cheaper, and the parts are more easily attained, and
Yeah.
um, so anyway, uh, that is what's going on with that.
Well, and
You
that's
know,
like I love the old original Bentleys, the Atlantic, the Type 57, the old original OG Bentleys, the Persang and stuff like that.
right?
Or the Type 35, all this stuff, is what I meant to say, not Persang, but I'm looking at something
I
else.
don't,
But
yeah, I don't know them
so,
very well at all.
well, the old original Bugattis, um, funny enough, Ettore Bugatti, who is actually was the brother of Monet. Um, but those cars they're priceless. You can't
Hmm.
drive them. You can see them. You can't touch them ever.
Right, right,
But there are companies out there that are building clones that are $250,000, basically.
right, right,
But those you can drive, those you can use, and they model them down even to the engine, to the chassis, suspension, the brakes, everything, to be as as correct as possible.
wow,
Which is cool.
yeah,
That's why it's a quarter
yeah,
million to $500,000 for these things.
right,
It's true
right,
craftsmanship.
yes,
But
yeah,
it's like, oh well, I mean, look, that's unobtainium for you and I, but
right, right,
it's at least obtainable or attainable to somebody else who can experience it, who can drive it, and let it be seen, let it be
right,
heard. And so obviously, my dad being the classic car guy he is, and he built that '69 Trans Am clone,
right,
and that's cool. That was, to me, I think, the real one is they didn't build many of in the various forms of it, and they're pretty much priceless. And some
right,
of them, they're worth $250,000 or more.
right,
And Dad's car, when he built it, it was probably worth 60, 70, when it was done. And
right,
that's a hell of a lot better than $250,000 or more. But it's
right,
also it's slightly attainable. But you and I get into this conversation all the time. Classic cars should not be as expensive as they are. It's ridiculous. They made too many of most of these cars anyway for them
right,
to ever be worth as much as they are. A any Mustang or Camaro with a V8 or a V6 from the 60s shouldn't be worth that much damn money. Unless it's a Z28 or a Boss or, a
right,
Shelby or anything like that. Sure, I get it. But if it had a
right,
350, if it was just a regular Mustang with a 302, stop it. Stop
right,
it. If it, or I mean a 289, not a 302. But if it had a 289, stop it. Cut the crap. This is ridiculous. You don't need to spend $35,000, $40,000 on a damn 67 Mustang.
right,
They made, for God's sake, Ford made 1 million Mustangs before the 60s were over.
right.
That's
Well, and so that's another thing. So these things come in waves,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that love them get to a point in their life where they have the extra income to explore that, and so that's why a lot of people that grew up wanting a muscle car maybe couldn't afford it. They get to that age now. That age group, that demographic is who can afford these cars, and so that's what drives up the price. That's what makes them kind of popular in that way. You look at the old 30s Fords or 20s rather. I mean, just the really early stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Old Model A's and stuff. You can get them pretty
I
reasonable
was
and
gonna say they're reasonable. They're in their 20s and 30s at most. I feel like
at
for
most, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, but some of the more basic ones, I mean, hell, you can get them for 15 or 12 to 15, and they're pretty clean.
yeah,
And it's because the generation that really love those, I mean, they're aging out. Uh, so that's what's happening. And then I would love a car like that, but uh, hell, they top out at 45 or something like that, and
yeah.
um, again, you get run over, going down the
Oh
street.
yeah.
You know,
There was a
they're
guy.
fantastic. They're fantastic. I mean, they're
Well,
just
wind in
how
your hair,
simple.
bugs in your teeth. You know.
Yeah, I mean, how simple and mechanical they are. I absolutely, I just love them. But again, it's that whole package. It's the how realistic it can be to own a classic car. You have that era. You've got the 50s, the 60s.
Yeah.
60s cars, were a little bit more street friendly. They had power and
Better
transmissions
brakes.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, I got this 56 Cadillac, and I wasn't really looking for a coupe, but that's what I got. And it ended up being, worth a little bit more as a two-door. So
And
that's why
it's
I tried to,
pillarless,
yes. Um,
which is an even bigger deal at the time.
yeah, I don't know what 56 may. Well, I don't know if it was 54 or not. 54, 5, and 6 were, very similar bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So 54 might have been the first year for the pillarless hard top.
But think about that
Um,
now, where most cars aren't pillarless hardtops anymore. The last ones are really like Mercedes Benz. They like to do pillarless coupes, hardtop
right.
coupes and stuff like that. And but it's crazy to think that in the 50s they were willing to do that. Now, granted, they didn't have the crash test standards like that we have now.
Right.
If you
Right.
roll over on a pillarless roof, guess what? The
Yeah. Yeah.
glass is
Exactly.
shattering, and so is your head. So,
Yeah.
but it's cool. It's cool. It's cool that
Yeah.
it was a design thing. They looked at it from a perspective of design, and then later on they were like, let's see if we can make this safer. And let's see if we can not kill people.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I
But I try to stay true to that car. From a design standpoint, I really love how they came out from the factory. Some people want to go wild with them,
mhm.
but it seems that their value is kind of hit or miss. I don't know if that age group thing is aging out, or what, but
I
I
don't
love the
know.
car anyways. I love the 50s stuff. Um,
I was excited. I was really excited when you got it. I mean, I'm still excited for you now, but I know that
yeah,
what you've been through with it and the 50, and
right,
it's as your
right.
friend, I'm like, oh god,
This poor bastard.
yeah, this
Yeah,
poor bastard, literally, like, oh
yeah,
god,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it
No, I mean, and that's why you see guys running the Chevy stuff, because you can make it happen.
for
You know,
$20 for a
right,
handshake and $20, you've got yourself
right,
a '57 Chevy that
right.
works.
Well, and that's the wild part of it all. The 57 Chevy parts are a quarter of what a Cadillac part is. You look at a water pump,
Yeah.
it's $50 for the BelAir and $200 for the Cadillac. And when the car's completely restored, the damn BelAir is worth 4 times as much as the Cadillac.
Which is
If
so
it's if
stupid.
it's yeah, it's weird. It's weird, but I love the BelAirs too.
See, I don't. I'll never forgive them. I'll never. Those
you know,
bastards. They took my father. I'll never forgive them.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. That's how the industry is. That's the cars. But so modern cars, I've been into the trucks because of just their utility. Um, and so I recently got the Ram 2500.
Right.
It's a mixed bag. So prior to that, I had F-150s. So
You had the 15 single
it was
cab.
a 16.
It was a 16 single
16.
cab.
Yeah.
In the green, in the guard, same green that my 15 Mustang had.
Right.
With the 5-liter V8 you had in it.
Fantastic truck.
8-foot bed.
Yeah.
Vinyl interior, right?
Yep. Yep.
And you finally, before you got that, you finally had traded in your 2003 V6 F-150 single cab 8-foot bed for the 16.
Yes. I sold that and the 50 Cadillac.
That's right.
To help fund the 16 F-150. And so that was a fantastic truck, especially coming from a V6, gutless 03.
Right. With rear-wheel drive only.
Yes. So this 16 had 4-wheel drive. And
I drove your, do you remember this? I drove your 2003 after you got married from the reception back to your house, or back to your, back to the hotel.
Yeah.
You got married in a dry county, so we had to bring our own booze. It could only be beer, right? No liquor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we brought a couple of kegs in the truck.
So me and the guys, we loaded the kegs in the F-150.
Right.
And somehow, I don't know who did it. It may have been me. I can't remember. But somebody I had to use the straps, the tie downs to make sure that the kegs weren't going to go anywhere. Right.
Right.
The one everybody had left, and I was still there trying to get this one tie down undone because there was such a knot built into it. It took me like an hour, and like to the point I almost just whipped out a knife and cut it because I was so annoyed.
Yeah, you should have.
I should have. That was also
cut that bitch.
Cut that bitch. That was also the same weekend that Reba accidentally told me that she loved me and got in my car and drove away and went to the hotel and waited for me. She thought I was going to break up with her. I was like, no, I'm not going to break up with you. I love you too.
Yeah, look how that worked out for her.
Now she's married to me, poor bastard. But so I drove that rear-wheel drive 8-foot bed V6 F-150 loaded down with some kegs in it, and it was gutless as hell. It started to rain at one point, and I was like, holy hell. Yeah. I think Ned was following me, or I was following him, and he was in his Impreza. His little wagon that he had. Which we all climbed into that for dinner that one night, all the guys, which was even funnier.
I tell you, I missed that truck in a certain light. I missed that truck.
It was simple.
It was ridiculously simple. It had 0 options, although it did have air conditioning and a radio. But it had a vinyl bench seat, rubber floor, crank windows. It was white.
Why is it going to be white?
Well, just the contractor special. It was just
with the gray plastic.
And I miss that truck in certain ways.
It's a great farm truck.
Yeah, and that's where it went to go live its days out. The guy that bought it, that's what it was going to be. But it was easy to load things because it was relatively, as a 2-wheel drive, it sat a little bit lower, and easy to load the mower into that and that kind of thing. But anyway, I
When
get
you
the
do all those
16
chores for
F-150.
everybody.
Yeah, I get the 16 F-150. Um, in my opinion, I mean, I've been out of having a fast car for years, but in my opinion, that truck was faster than necessary in any way. It had the 5 liter
Honestly,
and the aluminum body.
I don't think that truck would have been much slower, if even slower, than your '98 GT Mustang you had.
Oh hell, it would have left that in the dust. I
Well,
mean, really.
we had some mods on the '98.
Yeah, but I mean, it would have left that in the dust. But this, that truck was really, really fast for a pickup truck
It's pretty
and any
lightweight.
vehicle. Yeah, yeah. I don't remember what the spec is on it, but somewhere around, I don't know, 4,500 pounds.
I'll find it right
Uh,
now for you.
mm. So I had that for a little bit, and again, another single cab, and so there's the shortcomings of the single cab. We have a dog. If we go on long trips, he's 85 pounds. He's a husky golden mix, and so
And he refuses to sit in the back.
well, yeah. I mean, and if you're going on a road trip, he's going to be in the cab with you, and
Yeah.
it's just laying on you and hair everywhere, and um, that gets old after a few hours.
Yeah.
Uh, so I got the single cab because I just happened to find a good deal on the used. It was a 16. Um, and what caused the change in that one, I had been saving for a long time. I paid it down pretty good, and we had my niece in town, and we had to use the truck to get around, and um, her knees were hitting the radio buttons. Kept changing the radio station.
It was very awkward that she had to sit on your lap while you were driving, and your wife is looking at you, going, "Is this really? Does this really have to happen?"
Well, she wasn't quite on the left, the center seat there is a bench,
Honey, you don't
but
understand.
yeah, but yeah, so her knees were changing the radio, and I said, you know what, screw this, let's get into something. If I'm making payments, let's just trade it in and get into something that has 4 doors. And as being a Ford guy, I went to Ford. I went all over. I wanted to get something that was, very capable of hauling around the Cadillac and whatever other cars,
If need be.
Yeah, so a trailer in that Cadillac, you're going to be around 7,000 pounds, maybe a little less.
Mm-hmm.
My F-150, that was rated for 9,000, so it was capable, and it did it very well. But I like to get stuff that is, overly, much more capable. I don't like using something up to, 80% of its capability, or, you know what I'm saying? I like some breathing room.
Yeah, some room.
So I said, okay, I'm gonna shoot high. I'm gonna get the be all do all truck, and get a 3/4 ton that'll tell anything I ever need it to, and have 4 doors, so I have room for everybody. And like I said, being a Ford guy, I was looking at F-250s,
Mm-hmm.
and this was recent. This was right before they released the 7.3 liter gas engine. I wasn't going to do diesel. I couldn't justify the cost, or getting that and the cost of maintenance. I just plain old couldn't justify it. Couldn't afford it either. I mean,
Right.
So I was looking for gas engines, and I was going through hell, running around all the different dealerships, trying to test drive an F-250 with a 7.3 liter gas. I went to 2 or 3 different dealerships, and they didn't know what they were talking about. They would say that they had it in stock, and I'd get there, and oh no, we don't have that. Somebody would come out, we don't have that in stock yet. It's going to be in another month or a few weeks or whatever. But why don't you try driving the 6.2?
Yeah. 6.2.
They were trying to sell me on that. And Russ, who I work for, he's got a '07 Ram, 06 Ram. And by now it's got 216,000 miles on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, he loves it. I've never been a Dodge guy. I've always been a Ford guy.
His gas gauge is not a Dodge guy either. So
yeah. But, I said, okay, I'll look at him. Just for what the hell, I'll look at him. And so I went to, Ram now. And, it was just bottom line. They wanted to sell a truck more than Ford did. There was more included in the price, and the price was cheaper.
Yeah,
and they would come off.
And your Ram is pretty badass. I mean, it really is. It's a big truck,
really nice truck,
but it has quite a few options on it just as standard.
Yeah, I mean,
the radio's nicer.
I'm pretty easy to please when it comes to options.
Yeah.
I like a simple, I like them simple. But this truck, from the factory came with Bluetooth, and a reverse camera and power windows. Yes, thank God. Power windows and all that jazz that you kids these days
that you kids can't live without.
Yeah, and it's actually really nice to have. And the Ford, the comparable Ford,
$10,000 more.
It was, I want to say it was probably around $5,000 to $7,000 more, and it had roll down windows, and it didn't have the camera. It didn't have any of that stuff. And they wouldn't even budge. I mean, they all day long they'd let you walk. They wouldn't even
write your name down.
No, I mean, because they knew it was.
They knew they could sell it.
They knew they could sell it. It's one of the leading trucks, that are sold. So I got the Ram. I enjoyed the Ram. Two things to be said about it. On one front, I'm going into, this is a 3/4 ton truck.
Right.
Having lived with half-ton trucks, it's a different animal.
Right.
Now
you have a weighted tag now.
Yes, and I'm sure that older 3/4 ton trucks compared to modern 3/4 ton trucks were also night and day. Yeah. They probably really beat you up in those old ones. There were stiffer rides and all that.
But you also can't with your Ram, especially if it has a load on it. If you're hauling anything, there are streets, there are downtown areas where you can't even drive the truck, right?
Well, I mean, it's not like you're restricted, by any law or anything.
No, I just mean weight and stuff like that, and
it's a pain in the ass to park,
right?
And there are situations,
it's a big truck.
Yeah, so parking huge. Decks, that's out of the question.
I still love that you wanted to get what, a 21-foot trailer or 25-foot trailer, whatever it was.
It was 18.
It was an 18. Okay.
Yeah, for the Cadillac.
Yeah, for the 56. And I was like,
which is what you need. I mean,
you have to have it. Yeah.
For that car, it's a long car. That 56 Coupe is longer than the 54 door I had.
Remember we sat it next to my mom's Escalade ESV, or 2016 or 17, whatever it was, and it's like the same length. It's like,
right.
It's like the same damn length. By the way, just real quick, I looked up your Car and Driver tested a 4-wheel drive 5-liter crew cab F-150 in 2016. Mm-hmm. That truck weighed 5,220 pounds and hit 60 in 6.3 seconds. See, I would say yours is probably I'd say probably 200 or 300 pounds less. Yeah, I was going to say like probably 48 to 5,000 or 4,800, 5,000. So let's just say 0 to 60. Let's just say it's same 6.3 seconds 0 to 60.
Yeah.
That's crazy quick for a pickup truck. And
it's unbelievable. I mean, and it had a sport mode. It was silly. I mean, I almost never floored the truck.
You know what's even crazier? My dad's 18 right now. They're talking about at the end of this article, they talk about the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, which is what my dad has in his Platinum. That is half a second quicker to 60 than the 5 liter. So you think
Yeah, it's got the turbo.
5.8 seconds to 60. And now, at that time, they still had, if I recall, they still had the 6-speed automatic. Now they have the 10-speed. And this
Yeah,
thing absolutely hauls ass.
yeah. No, they're unbelievable, and I love them. I mean, if I was to get another half-ton truck, it would be an F-150, without question. But
I don't know. I haven't driven the new Rams yet, but
I haven't either. But I just, man, I just having had that 16, it was just as far as a half-ton, it was just an awesome truck.
but I've had multiple people tell me. In fact, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Kristen Shaw said the other day, because she is the president of the Texas Auto Writers Association. So they're the ones that like hand out the big Texas, truck award kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she said the Ram is way better than F-150 right now.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
She's
interesting.
way better.
Well, they've done a lot with the interiors and the options and all
I
that
think it
kind of stuff.
looks
The bells
really
and
good too.
whistles. Yeah, they're a good looking truck, bells and whistles and all that.
I saw your truck the other day. I've seen your truck like 3 or 4 times now. Your same color, everything.
Right.
And it's
Long bed?
yes, long bed. Yeah.
Wow.
It's huge. There's one that runs around town here that actually a couple times now when I've been to the local Ford dealer, because it's attached to a Dodge dealership, and it's been there or parked on the side, and you can't, like, when you go around the corner, you have to back up and turn around because you can't even get around the corner because he's parked there in a space
Yeah.
that it's just too long. But every time I
Yeah.
see him, number one, massive ass truck. Number two,
Yes.
really good looking truck though.
Yeah.
Like
No, I
really
mean,
muscular and very
yes.
very
Yeah. No, when I went, so it's a 19. And when I went, my goal was, if I was going to consider the truck, I would have gotten the quote unquote classic body, which was
right.
the prior body. But the one I test drove was that new body. It was black and had the chrome package. And I just said, that's it. That's what I want. So, once Ford just really didn't want a deal, I said, all right, I'm going to Ram. And I went and I bought the Ram. And I mean, Ford actually called that night. What can we do to earn your business? I said, nothing. I just bought a Ram.
Yeah.
That's it. So, it's a great truck. By nature, it's being a 3/4 ton, you have different characteristics with that, regardless of brand. The thing that I hate about the truck is it has this eco mode where it shuts down 4 cylinders, and you can't really turn it off. There's a way to, but it's not like you're really permanently doing it. Every time you put it in drive, this is an 8-speed transmission. Every time you put it in drive, there's a gear plus and minus button on the steering wheel, and if you scroll down and you select gear 8,
Mm-hmm.
so it's going to run through all gears like normal. It won't engage eco mode, which eco mode shuts down 4 cylinders just to save gas. Every time it does that, there's a vibration in the truck, just kind of a noise, and it's especially drony at like 1900 RPM, regardless of gear, regardless of speed.
And what did they tell you? You took it to the shop, and what did they tell you about that?
Yeah, I mean, long story short, they said it's normal. It's normal. That's just a characteristic of it.
So
But
designful.
it really needs to be, it needs to be seamless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. It's not. You can just feel it and hear it, and I've gotten used to it. Also, if it's in tow mode, it won't do that. They'll change the shift patterns a little bit. But bottom line, you're saving 1 mile to the gallon, and this truck gets terrible gas mileage. I average 12. I average
Good
12.
Lord.
Yep. It's really, really bad.
Would you like to know what I'm averaging right now in my GT350 with 526 horsepower and 469 pound-feet of torque?
Do I have a choice?
No, you don't.
Okay.
I'm currently, after 15,000, almost 16,000 miles, I am currently averaging 17.4 miles to the gallon, which is really funny because that's exactly 1 mile per gallon less than my 2015 GT.
Yeah.
So just remember that when you're driving your truck around, you can have a GT350 for the same price as that damn truck, and you don't care. You just want to be a pickup man, you redneck.
Yep. I'm just a damn redneck, man.
Listen here, buddy.
But that 16 F-150 that I forgot to say, the gas mileage was great on it. I mean, for what it was.
Yeah, you were 15 and 21, 22 on that.
I think I don't know if it's that high, but I know I hit 20 on the highway.
Yeah.
And my old V6 wouldn't. Hell, I don't think I would clear 17.
Right, I remember that. We talked about that because you were looking at getting a V8 from that era, 2002, 2004, 2003 V8, and it was like the same gas mileage. Didn't even matter. It's just like,
yeah.
But yeah. I will say I do think about your 16, just because it was mainly because it was the same color as my Mustang, and it had the 5-liter.
Yeah,
but it was a
great truck.
It was a cool truck. Like I really did like that truck.
It was an awesome truck. I mean, the biggest
single cab, 8-foot bed. I mean, that was
with the 4-wheel drive. I mean, it was like a park ranger truck.
Literally, like park ranger spec. Yeah, because it's the same color and everything, basically.
Yeah, but, super cool, super capable, but
super comfortable too. Even the base F-150s are comfortable pickup. Modern day pickup trucks are like old school Cadillac comfortable these days, which is quite insane for being a 5,000-pound vehicle, and they're like, floating like they're a 98 town car, No,
they're and that is Ford's moneymaker.
But with that being said, way too much damn money for pickup trucks, used and new.
Oh well, the used market, at least here in North Carolina,
it's obscene. I mean, it's ridiculous. It really in the Southeast, especially, it's ridiculous. You find right now, I'm looking at online. I was like, I wonder what green F-150s, are going for right now. Because you love green. I love green. You gotta have green. Shut up. So, so this 2013 XLT F-150, just shy of 200,000 miles, so 195,000 miles, $12,000. Kiss my ass.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. $12,000 for 200,000 miles. I mean, people are asking 13 and 15 for 140 to 180. I'm like, dude, what is this guy wants this guy was 14,000 for a 2012 King Ranch with 183,000 miles. Yeah, no,
I mean it's truly mind-boggling. I don't understand it. And it's kind of funny. Growing up, I never had access to a pickup truck. We didn't have pickup trucks.
Yeah, your dad had the Expedition and the Land Rover. Your mom had the Mustang.
Yeah, and before all that stuff, we had minivans and station wagons and all that good stuff. But we never, Dad never really needed a truck, and it wasn't, he just didn't need it. Now, I can't live without it,
Right.
So I just, you got to have a truck. They're just so handy.
Yeah, trucks these days they're the modern day, minivan, SUV. They're keeping up with the Joneses, that sort of thing. Everybody uses a pickup truck, like it's a Suburban from the early 2000s, and they kind of do everything. I mean, except for the gas mileage, but in general, they do everything. They haul stuff home from Home Depot. They take kids to soccer. Yeah, they can drive in the snow, and as they're safe. I've had Dad's 18 F-150 since they moved to their new house, and his Platinum, and Reba and I drive it all the time because, especially when it was the wintertime, he was like, just keep it, because I had, I blew that rear tire in the Shelby, and I had to have all 4 tires replaced in the dead of winter. And he's like, just keep the truck. I was going and like basically moving stuff from their old house to their new house, or going and picking up stuff for their new house, whatever. And he was just like, just keep the truck. I don't need it. I'm not using it. He just doesn't care right now.
Right.
And so I've been using it for, I don't know, 7 months, 8 months at this point, almost. And I don't use it every day, but I use it a decent amount, more than I really would care to. Just because, like right now, Reba and I are going to build a weightlifting platform for the garage for her, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have the garage gym, we have everything, and we were like, you know what? We're going to be home the next couple of weeks. She obviously isn't going into work. And we were like, you know what? Let's just go get the materials and go build the platform that she's wanted. And that we've been selling some garage gym equipment that we just didn't need anymore, and just throwing it in the bed of the pickup and driving it, to meet somebody is easy. And then going to pick up the stall mats and all the wood that we need. And it's just like, it's wonderful.
And keep in mind, I drove a 98 Mustang for 10 years,
right.
And that was back when I, worked as a musician, moving equipment.
Yeah.
All
going
that kind of stuff,
town to town and that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was lowered and it was dragging on every damn thing.
And it was loud as hell.
Yeah. I'd been there, done that.
I did love your T-shifter that you had in it.
Yeah. The Hearst.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a super fun car. I enjoy them. But when it comes to daily drivability, just the daily life, the truck to me is just, it's just great.
Yeah.
It's just great. You got to have a truck.
Just to kind of wrap this up. But I think that this will make you laugh because you'll appreciate this. On AutoTrader, this one's actually nearby to me. Used 2015 F-150 Lariat, so like a mid-grade F-150, 78,000 miles, 4-wheel drive, the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, $28,500. And then this is another one this one is 400 miles away. 2013, 125,205 miles, EcoBoost, V6, again, 125,000 miles, $18,000.
Yeah.
Kiss my ass. Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. Go.
I'll be dipped.
Yeah, I'll be dipped. Listen here, Buster. I'll be dipped.
I'll be dipped.
That's one of my favorite sayings because it means nothing. I'll be dipped. It's like, what are you, a chocolate covered pretzel? I'll be dipped.
What are you, a pretzel? Get out of here.
What are you, a pretzel over here? Get out of here, you little white chocolate piece of shit. Get out of here. Get out of here. Yeah. Shunned you are.
Yeah. So, anywho. Yeah, man. I mean, that is the current state of affairs.
I'm glad I pre-recorded this
because
nobody would listen to this live. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, not at all. They probably won't listen to it recorded either. So,
you know what? But we'll listen to it. I'll remember the days that we used to talk about this. You'll have no friggin' clue.
No.
We'll be 70 years old, and I'll be like, "Hey, Rob, do you remember that time we did a podcast?" You're like,
"Yeah, here we go."
Casting couch? What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, that boy's dipped.
That boy's dipped. That boy's brain has been dipped. I don't know what the hell's wrong with him. I'll tell you right.
What the hell going on?
I don't know what the hell's going on. Stop playing around on my phone.
Right.
I think we just need to get on a podcast at some point. We just need to record a podcast of us doing basically what we do for 10 minutes on the phone when we first talk every time.
Yeah. I'm down. I'm
down with the brown too. What can brown do for you? Listen here, Buster. Let me tell you, buddy. You dolt. We're just going through all of our stupid things that we do. This guy wants $24,000 for a 2015 5-liter V8 with 98,000 miles. That dude has been dipped in the brain.
The man's dipped.
This is a 2015 King Ranch, 68,000 miles, 40,000. What is wrong with these people?
Yeah, it's trucks they're just a hot commodity. That's there you go, because you look at the industry, Ford, Dodge is kind of Ram, but Chevy, they're getting out of the passenger car market, and they're focusing on the trucks and SUVs.
You know what? They say that now, and then the coronavirus damn hits. Nobody's got any friggin' money to buy any of these trucks that are $100,000. And now, guess what? They're going to be like, you know what? We're going to be selling a $15,000 Focus again. That, you know.
Well, you know, I did read, and I have yet to see, and that's a whole other ball of wax. That, you know, the small truck market. You know, I know you tested the
Ranger.
The Ranger. I did read though that Ford was, you know, in talks of making a smaller and simpler.
I did. I read that too.
Mini truck.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm very curious to see about the Bronco.
I'm not against pickup trucks. I'm not. Just like I'm not necessarily against crossovers. I'm against the idea that you're being sold something that you don't actually need. You're just being told you need it. When I was selling cars, the first lesson I got, this is the God's honest story. God's honest true story 100%. I was sitting in a back office, actually in a break room, with a guy named Bob. Oh God, what was Bob's name? Anyway, he was
Bob Vila.
Bob Vila. Bob Vila was the one who did our roof, and then he did a TV show about it. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He was
I'll be dipped.
Locally known. So Bob was our old man who bought our used cars. Went to auctions and everything. Great guy. Loved him dearly. They screwed him over every chance they could get, and it was terrible. But anyway.
Yeah.
But he was like 75 years old at the time, and, you know, I felt really bad for him all the time. But anyway, he taught me how to read and write the stickers for the used cars and all this stuff. And I remember I was sitting in with one of my managers. It was like the first 2 days that I was working. And the manager told me, no one walks on the lot and knows what they want until we tell them. And that was the basic principle of everything we did in car sales. And it was true in the sense that, like, for instance, I had a customer that wanted a CX-9, but they wanted to order it because they wanted it in a color that we didn't have and we couldn't locate. And my manager got mad at me and said, "You're a terrible salesman. You go out there and sell them whatever we have on the lot." And I was like, well, there's a difference. These people have the money and the credit. They don't care. Like, they're going to wait. You know, they're just going to go somewhere else and get what they want. And he's like, that's why you suck at this, because you can't tell them what they want. Right. And I was like, I don't want to tell somebody what they want. I want them to come here and be like, hey, I want a blue CX-9 with these options.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a whole other thing there in itself, because that's what I hate. You know, I'll go in knowing exactly what I want.
Which is fine. Exactly. I don't care. That makes my job easier. You know, it's like,
and these people don't want to hear that.
No.
Oh, now I have to go source it. Now I have to go bring it from one other dealer. And
you know what they did? You know what the couple did? They went and bought an Acura MDX because my manager wouldn't order the car that they wanted.
Yeah, and rightly so.
They were willing to put I remember they were willing to put $1,000 down as a deposit.
Yeah.
They were willing to sign all the paperwork beforehand.
Right.
They were willing to do everything. And I was like, dude, they're not even, like, this isn't even a tire kicking. They're in my office filling out the credit app, and they have $1,000 check in their hand to give to me to put down on the car to order it. And they're willing to do everything today and then just take delivery when it gets here. And he was like, no, I'm not doing it. You sell them the car that's out there. Right. We had a Kia Sportage, because we were a Mazda Kia dealer, new car dealer. We had a Kia Sportage at the time, this is 2007, that didn't have air conditioning. It was optioned without air conditioning. And this car sat in a lot for like 2 years. And I tried to sell it to like 3 people, and they all loved it. And then they got in it, and they would like, I would just hesitate to test drive anybody in this car because I knew it was coming, you know, and it was always the summertime, of course.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, they're like, oh, you got to turn the air on, man. I'm like, so I got this little fan that plugs into a cigarette lighter. And it was, oh my God, that car was blistering hot. There was one guy that was actually thinking about it because he needed to rebuild his credit. He was genuinely thinking about it because he's like, I think this is about all I can get. And we drove it. We both came back. We were a pile of sweat. And I mean, I am pouring sweat from my face and my hair and everything. And I'm like, I'm closing my eyes because my eyes are like filled with sweaty sweat, like, or salty sweat. And I'm like, so what'd you think? It's a great car, isn't it? I can't see a damn thing in front of my face. I think
your glasses are fogged up.
My glasses are fogged up. I was turned around. He was behind me. Like, I didn't even know where he was. Like, I was Stevie wondering it the whole time.
Riveting. Riveting drive.
Riveting drive. It was, I loved it.
What an experience. Yeah.
And I just remember he's like just sopping, and he's just like, he is wiping his forehead and just like throwing his hand, and the water's just like a hurricane coming off of his hand.
Right.
And he's like, I don't know, man. It's just the answer. It goes, I don't know, man. He took a taxi home. That's how much he needed a car, and he didn't need this one. It's like,
he's like, I'm gonna get a bike. I'll walk.
The dude took a taxi home and was like, I need a car, but I'm not this desperate. It's like, this Sportage with no air conditioning was like snaggletooth Craigslist hooker. And you're like, I don't know if I'm that desperate. I don't know.
Luckily they are sponsoring this podcast.
Snaggletooth hookers, Craigslist, or Kia? Which one?
Word from our sponsors. Kia, you're up. A ringing endorsement.
I actually, this is a true story too. I actually got an email from Kia's marketing department in Australia. Okay. Right. They wanted to buy ad space on RawAutos, right? This is like, I don't know, this is like probably 7 years ago at this point. And they're like, hey, can you write, now that you've tested all these Kias, like, we know that you used to sell Kias and you now love Kia products. You think they're great cars. We would like to advertise our, Kia of Australia on RawAutos. What do you think about writing an article? It could be, whatever you want about Kia. You could say whatever you want. We just want to advertise on it because we think you've got a really good voice about Kia. Like, you really, you're honest about how bad they were and how good they are now,
Right.
They knew I had sold them. And so I was like, you know what? This is actually an interesting idea. They're going to literally give me, pay me advertising dollars to write anything I want about Kia,
Right.
And then just, I thought this was a great opportunity. This is really cool. So I write this, I write this article. I send it to them to see if they're, if they still want to advertise. I was going to run the article anyway, because I really liked it. I thought it was a great article regardless. Yeah. And the basic hang up was the guy who had contacted me was like, I think it's perfect. He's like, but, and it was basically
that story about the air conditioning.
Well, no, I don't even remember. I don't think I shared the story about the air conditioning. It was, I had said, like, within the first couple of paragraphs that Kia were so bad. And this is actually also a true story. I used to ask new car Kia buyers if they were buying it to take it to a demolition derby, because that's about all it's good for. And I said that in the article, but I showcased, but I also did like snippets and pictures of all the new Kia cars that I had driven and reviewed and how great they were, how much better they were from what I was selling people. And there were actual times where I refused to sell people Kias because I was like, no, this is a crap car. It was like a little Kia Spectra. I was like, no, this is terrible. Actually, the Kia Rio was the one I did not want to sell anybody. That's right. But I did almost buy a Kia Rio that had a 5-speed manual just because I wanted it, because it had a manual and I thought it'd be really fun to take to a racetrack and just destroy. Anyway, so I did sell that one, and that was really funny. Sold it to a guy who he was like, and this is 100% true. Sold it to a guy who was like 25, 26. He walks in my office, nice little, kind of country kid who was just kind of, not all there, but a nice guy. and he brings his girlfriend in, and she's pregnant. Oh, okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet girl, very nice. She's 16 years old. He's like 25, 27 years old. He doesn't have a lick of credit to his name. His dad comes to the dealership, has to basically co-sign and essentially buy the car for him.
Right.
But I just remember his dad took him out of the office. Or no, sorry, he kept him in the office. Right? He said, "Can I have a minute with my son?" I said, "Sure." And I was sitting outside the office, and I just heard him say, "I'm tired of you screwing up." Like, I'm tired. I mean, just reading him the riot act of just disappointment, right?
Right. And it was nothing to do with the previous decisions. It was entirely
because he had him come.
Yeah. It's because he disowned him.
It's because he was buying.
He said, "This is where I draw the line. You buy a fucking Kia."
That's exactly what it was. He's like, "Got a 16-year-old girl pregnant, whatever. You know,
that's fine.
You're almost 45. It's fine. I don't care.
Yeah, we're all human.
We're all
beings.
good. Yeah, we all have the urge." And then but the Kia Rio, that's the final stop. You son of a bitch. He cut him off.
You're on the next train to Mars, buddy.
He contacted Elon Musk and said, "I can donate a kid to you to send."
Use this guy. Test him. Test your new rockets.
Anybody need a crash test dummy?
Put him on
it. This is our new monkey. So he's like, "I think it's great, but my boss is a little hesitant." Yeah, he's a little hesitant to pay money. Because I think they were going to give me like $500 or $1,000, right? I think it was. I don't think it was anything crazy, but it was decent money, whatever. And they were just going to advertise on the article. And he was like, he just really doesn't like the line about, that you asked people if they were going to go do a demolition derby. And I just wouldn't change it. I said, "No, I'm not." I said, I appreciate and I respect that you guys aren't going to do it, and that's fine. I'm not bothered by it. I said, "That's fine.
Right.
I was gonna run the story anyway. I liked it. I thought it was appropriate. I thought it was cool. I thought it was good." And he was apologetic, and I was like, "No reason to apologize. You gave me an idea to write about, and I really like it." And in the end, I was like, "Look, journalistic integrity. I can't change something because I just not like that,
Right.
But yeah, no, it's and at the time I really shouldn't have even let them see the article, but I kind of figured that line would be a holdup for him.
Well, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna
look at him now?
Look at him now. Kia of Australia, they need me. No, I have no idea if they need me or not. I don't even know if that guy still works for Kia, but yeah. So on that note. I remember you told me, you said these podcasts should be no longer than like 30, 45 minutes at most. Right. We've been on the phone an hour and 36 minutes, and that was... Now, we probably talked about 10 minutes before I hit record.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel now, you son of a bitch?
Well, I feel good.
Now you know. Right. Whenever you need to, you feel right. It feels right.
I just feel right.
Now you know. Whenever you need to talk about cars or vent about something, just we'll record this.
Give you a ring.
Give me a ring. Give me a ring. Just
give me a call. Give me a call and talk about it.
Give me a call and talk about it. We could just sit here and talk about it for days, hours, years, months. We got nothing better to do.
Yeah, coronavirus.
We got no future.
We're all fucking dead anyways.
Go fuck
yourself.
We're gonna die. Yeah. Go fuck yourself. Gefilte fish.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go eat some chicken.
I'm going to go eat a sandwich. And then I'm going to sit out on my driveway and hang out with everybody wearing gloves and drink margaritas 6 feet away from everybody.
Split distance.
Yeah, social distancing.
Right.
It's really awkward when Reba and I have sex now because she wants to social distance. And I keep trying to show her, honey, they say that couples are allowed to be next to each other. She's like, no.
Yeah, that's that white devil talk. White rhetoric. Yeah, don't bring that shit around the house. Reba knows what's up.
She's like sitting next to each other is the devil.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's, she knows what's up. You got a 6 foot away, buddy.
You're just trying to bring the devil into our relationship, you bastard. You're just trying to taint this marriage, you son of a bitch.
Right. Yeah, you can't have relations until you're 10 years into it.
At least.
You got to earn that.
Yeah, you got to give me money, power, status,
Yeah, totally.
I got to wear the pants. All right, man.
Cool. All right, man. Thanks.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later. Tell Annie I said hey.
I will. All right,
bye.
See you. Bye.
And there you have it. My best friend. Hope you enjoyed that one, because I did. I certainly enjoyed sitting around and talking with somebody that I've known for 20 years, and I don't know, just being able to be friends on the radio show in a sense. Now, everybody that's been on the show, I know in some form or another, mostly through social media. But with Rob, it's a different relationship. We're best friends. Without further ado, I shall end this podcast. I hope you're being safe. I hope you're practicing your social distancing. The CDC and the White House recommend that you wear some sort of cloth mask of sorts. Do not hog the masks that hospitals need and professionals need. Make yourself a handkerchief mask. Colin Hanks, the son of Tom Hanks, on Instagram has a great post on how to do a non-sewn mask. It's just a handkerchief or bandana, and he teaches you how to make it with some hair ties. So it's really cool. Yeah, hope you guys are staying safe out there. I know it sucks. We're all going through it. We're all dealing with something similar. We're all having to realize how different life can be. We're not used to this being America. We're used to this being what we see on television, what we see in the news, other places around the world. We're not used to this being us. But it's okay, because we're going to get through this. And we're going to get through this together. Because everything that happens in this country is not about me, it's about we. So I thank you for listening. When you get a chance, if you could go to RawAutos.com, read some reviews, read some articles that I've written, go to RawAutos on YouTube and subscribe, like some things if you dare. And of course, find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at RawAutos, obviously. And I say us, it's really just me. Yeah, enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the episode with Rob. On Wednesday will be an episode with Johnny Lieberman from Motor Trend, and Friday will be an episode with Jamie Kittman from Automobile, New York Times, Car Talk, and the like. And until then, happy motoring.
So